Hey everybody, hope you're doing well. This video got a couple goals for you. I'm going to tell you about these two cancer patients. I'm going to be specifically diving into brain cancer. With these two examples, I'm going to tell you about how these people are switching their mindset and dealing with cancer in a alternative way, so to speak, and some tips for you, your family, anyone that you know that's going through cancer. Because let's be honest, it's affecting almost everybody nowadays. And in our generation, we have in America a prognosis of, or an estimate of 1 in 3 women that's going to be getting breast cancer. We have an estimate of 1 in 2 men are going to be getting prostate cancer. What are we all sharing? Is it truly genetics? So keep that question in your mind. So before I jump into this, I just want to say, don't wait until it's too late to try something alternative or natural. If your body's telling you, if your mind is telling you to not go with the 3 legal routes, if you will, the chemo, the radiation, or surgery, then don't do it, because there's a whole mental half of healing that we need to incorporate that we are not using with modern approaches. So let's back up. I want to talk about these 2 cancer patients and their brain cancer and how they're changing. Unfortunately, both these patients are stage 4. Both these people are stage 4. One of them is a female. She's older, and they gave her 2 months to live. She has lung metastasis, or lung cancer that's metastasized or traveled to her brain. The other, he's a younger gentleman, and he just has brain cancer. That's his primary cancer. Now, cancer is very divisive. It's very complex, and it likes to travel. So real quick, I'm not getting into the history of cancer or anything, but I just want to generally start picking your brain and planting these seeds to help you and your family and the people that you know start changing their minds on how they think about going about their care of cancer. And this is not the fault of anybody particular. However, if you look at the last 30 years of cancer and research and all these beautiful minds, we're chasing the wrong route of administration with cancer. We're looking at it as a DNA and genetic dysfunction. I'll give you a specific example. When we look at tumors, there's something called heterogeneity, meaning the variance in different types of cells and DNA mutations, okay? So if you look at the classic way to look at cancer is we have a very specific set of mutations that progresses. So you get one mutation that causes another mutation, then another mutation is caused by that one, and so on and so forth. And you get this chaos of genetic mutations. And that's what we're told. But there's a lot of holes in this theory. Now, let me remind you that this is only a theory that we are basing cancer off of. And the one that we're starting to change our minds towards is also a theory. Nothing is set in stone, but we have been programmed to think that DNA is the end-all, be-all of in the origin of cancer. I'm going to start showing you through a series of videos on why it's not, how to change our mindset about how we should start helping our family and the people that we care about from the very, very day that they start with that cancer diagnosis. So the last 30 years, we focus on this DNA mutations. So let's look at cervical cancer in women, and let's look at colon cancer. So typically we go for a colonoscopy, or women, you go for your pap smear, right? And they say you have precancerous cells or pre-malignant cells in the colon. So it doesn't matter if you're female or male, you're following what I'm saying here. So typically, if this theory of cancer were true, obviously it's a theory again, so it means that you have these precancerous cells, and eventually one of those is going to turn into a mutated gene, and then what's going to happen is that is also going to turn into a mutated gene and cause a bunch of these set of expressions or DNA dysfunctions, and you get cancer, okay? What is going to happen is you should be able to follow, no matter what the cancer, no matter who the background, no matter what their other genetic makeup is, you should be able to follow these very simple steps. 1 turns to 2, turns to 3, turns to 4. But we see in different cancer patients that some colon cancer and some cervical cancer patients, and this is all cancers, I'm using these 2 as specifics because we get pre-screenings for these types of cancers. When we look at these, we get some patients who have 1 mutation who have colon cancer. We get some who have 8 or 7 or 4. They're not following this very specific step. So that's a big hole in this current theory of cancer, is that we're following a very specific set of DNA mutations. Now, that's why it's important to take this knowledge, share it with your family, share it with the people that you love, because while early detection is good, obviously, it is also setting us up for failure, because we're going to be introduced to chemo, radiation, and surgery at an earlier point. Now, if we start looking at the metabolism of cancer. This is the new way of looking at cancer. Over the last 30 years, if you talk to a researcher, if you talk to an oncologist, if you talk to anybody that you know who digs deep into cancer, the two sides that are starting to form and create both. There's a DNA part of it, but that's only a side effect. Now we need to start looking, and as the future, we're looking at the metabolism of cancer. So with that said, when we look at the metabolism of cancer, and these researchers who look at the DNA of cancer and the oncologists, they feel defeated. They feel like, and there really is no progress here. I mean, your survival chances are slim to none, increased over the fact if you didn't use chemo or radiation at all. Now, so we feel defeated. There's no progress. And you guys can look into these numbers yourself. The survival rate is not increased. The percentage of overall deaths for cancer patients is still the same as it was 100 years ago. So when we start to focus, and the people who are starting to look at the metabolism side of cancer instead of the DNA expression of cancer, there's a bright spark. It's brand new. It's forthcoming, and they feel excited. There's an energy in the labs. So you talk to people, and there's a very small group, probably 1-2% of the people you know who are in the medical community even know about the metabolism side of cancer. And so that's why I'm really trying to change your mind. So without getting too deep in this, because obviously this is going to be way more than one video's worth of information, I want to tell you about these two specific cancer patients. Brain cancer specifically has a very, very unique ability, the brain itself, not even cancer. So the brain uses 20% of sugar at any given time in the body. As long as we have sugar and glutamine, which are two fuels for cancer, the cancer is going to keep on growing. The reason why brain cancers grow so quickly and are so aggressive usually is because of all that sugar. All that sugar is the fuel for cancer. Now, the brain also, like I said, opposed to other cancers, if you have another type of cancer, you can use fat for fuel in your body, and it can also use both pathways, in anaerobic and anaerobic, meaning when you fast or go into ketosis through a ketogenic diet, a true ketogenic diet, not this Atkins BS, not this bacon and cheese stuff that you see on Facebook in these keto-friendly diets. These are not keto. This is not a true keto. So I obviously am realizing I need to cover in another video ketosis on a deeper level. We will get to that. So with brain, you have this magic switch. Even though the brain uses 20% of sugar, it also has this switch that when we fast and when we go into a ketogenic diet, the goal is through ketosis. What that means is your body is going to, think about the bear when it hibernates. It gets all fat before because it's burning up sugar, but when it hibernates, it switches over. Just when we fast, the hibernation occurs in the bear, and it switches over to fat storages. Now the brain has that beautiful switch, and especially with cancer, it is not going to use both paths at once. It's either going to use only sugar path, or it's only going to use a fat path. Cancer cells have the beautiful ability, the beautiful target on its back. And this is not any specific cancer. This is all cancers. All cancers. So don't think that you're alone in this cancer thing if it's you watching this. Oh, I have HER-positive or HER-negative breast cancer, or this or that. Do not think that you are individual in that sense, that you're in your own bucket, because that makes you feel helpless. That makes you feel lonely, and you're not. Every single cancer has this beautiful target on the back. When we fast, when we introduce ketones, which is just when our body switches over from sugar to fat. So the easiest way is to get into ketosis, to start making ketones in the body, is through fasting. Now we can also do this through restricted calorie diet. It's called a restricted calorie ketogenic diet, or RKD for short. So when we go into RKD and we start restricting calories on top of a ketogenic diet, some beautiful things are going to happen. So that brain tumor cannot use sugar for fuel at all anymore, and it's only going to use fat. Cancer cells cannot use the fat. So it's beautiful, beautiful thing when we switch. So this is how, unfortunately, they're stage 4, so they're throwing everything they can at their cancer, and we're eager to see what happens. But they have some very simple goals. They want to see their family get married and things like this in a couple months. So that's our goals, and obviously quality of life. There's so many things that are related to quality of life versus you know, how much money you're going to pay for chemo and all this stuff. These are other videos ahead, just to plant some seeds in your brain. But when we start looking at the dysfunction of mitochondria, this is where it gets very interesting, because when we look at cancer from a DNA mutation point of view, it's much, much different. It's much, much different than when we look at it from a mitochondrial dysfunction. And you're going to hear me talk about this for so long, for the rest of my life, that this is the focus of the future of medicine, is the mitochondria. It does so much more. And these are little powerhouses. Our body makes currency, energy. Think of it about money. Okay, here's your cell, and you have up to thousands of these little mitochondria, these little organelles, these little baby things inside of the cell that make energy. And these are what gets turned off. These are what sends the signals called retrograde responses to the DNA to get these dysfunctions. This is what we're going to be covering much, much more. So what I want to get before I end this video, to the bottom line, is start changing the mindset. You are not alone. You are not in a class of your own. Your cancer, your neighbor's cancer, your mom's cancer, everybody has the very same target on its back that no one is looking at, and it's a very slow change. And if it's not going to change from the top down to the National Cancer Institute and everybody else, it's going to start here. It's going to start with me, it's going to start with you, it's going to start with your family and your community and the people that you love, by sharing this message and sharing the fact that we need to change how we view cancer and how we treat it from within the home. And it's going to force from the bottom to the top, a grassroots movement, so to speak. And this is the future of medicine. This is the future of cancer. And this is the future, how you can prolong both the quantity and the quality of the people that you care about life who has cancer. And I wish that I knew this information when my mom was still alive, but it's selfish of me to think about this, but it has made me who I am and who I am not. It will make me forever someone who is not a fan of chemotherapy, who will never use radiation on me and my family, and who will always do everything natural or alternative. Because what really is the alternative medicine, ladies and gentlemen? What really is the alternative medicine? What have we been using for the last thousands and hundreds of thousands of years in order to keep our human race healthy? It's only in the last, since World War II, chemotherapy has been around, and chemotherapy was founded through World War II through mustard gas, and that is how we realized that we could have chemotherapeutic agents in the role of reducing tumors, specifically like leukemia and things like this. But that is the story of cancer and how we got to be around this theory of DNA and gene expression malfunction is a completely different story. So now I'm getting warmed up. Now I'm getting now I'm really getting into it, and this is, unfortunately, where I have to cut you guys off. So we'll talk about more. I just want to talk about how these people are switching their mindset. That's the biggest thing, and how you guys can do it too. So we'll be covering this a lot more. And all right, talk to you guys soon. Love you. Be safe. Always keep learning and always stay critical. Always keep learning and always stay critical of everything. The doctor's not always right. The medical community is not always right. I am not always right. You are never right. At all times. We are humans, we make mistakes, and it's time to realize that the last 30 years of cancer research has been completely wrong. It's completely needs to be revisited from a mitochondrial dysfunction standpoint and a respiratory dysfunction standpoint, not a DNA mutation standpoint. Love you guys, take care.